Welcome into another week of Hail to the Podcast. This week is Rutgers week for Michigan. Back at home after a 2-week, well, one was a bye, the other was a road trip to Wisconsin. One was relaxing, the other was excruciating. I'm your host, Brandon Justice. We're brought to you by the Wolverine Lounge and presented to you by Big Heads Media. Joined by me, as always, is my co-host, Daniel Dash. Dash, my buddy, how are you?
We're doing well. Big week.
Yeah, Rutgers.
Enormous. Is this not the one that you circle on your schedule when it comes out?
I hate Rutgers. I think anybody who's ever followed me on Twitter, like at any point in time, I don't care if you followed me yesterday, you probably know how much I really dislike Rutgers' presence in the Big Ten. That's probably unethical of me to say.
You're not alone.
It's probably unethical of me to say in a podcast, but I just don't like Rutgers at all. What do they do? I mean, yeah, they the media and the New York and all of that, and the presence in the. No offense, man. No offense. I know you're a New York native, and I know that.
And as a New York native, I can tell you that I have never once seen a Rutgers fan in New York.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I'm a Long Islander. Spent a lot of time on Long Island. Also spent a good deal of time in New York City. See a lot more block M's. I see some red W's. I'll see some purple N's, but I will never see a red R. I don't understand if there's a fan base. Maybe if you get into New Jersey, maybe northern New Jersey, central New Jersey, you'll start seeing it, but it's not in New York.
That's what they wanted to get into the New York market, right? So I got to ask you, when the Big Ten picked up Rutgers, did you see a lot more Big Ten football than before, or what was the move there? Like, what happened?
No. So my
this
mom
had no effect on New York.
Right. It had no effect on me.
So with or without Rutgers, the Big Ten has no positive or negative. There's no effect.
I agree.
Besides negative impact of Rutgers being terrible at most sports.
I would say that. Most sports, they're dreadful. They played a volleyball match in Ann Arbor last year where they brought half the amount of players as Michigan. Despite the 12 scholarships in women's volleyball, they brought less than 12. They're struggling out here, but I think bringing in Maryland that same year was a good move. But in New York, you're going to get far more alumni of other Big Ten schools than you will Rutgers fans.
At least
based on proximity.
At least Maryland's good at stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
just
things. Like Maryland finds value in places. Rutgers is just like, it's become a meme in and of itself. Like the Rutgers, like just saying Rutgers. Saying Rutgers is just like, it's almost like an adjective. Like, I don't know, man. That movie was pretty Rutgers.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good at all. Like, it was bad start to finish. It never had a chance. That movie lost 78-0 at home. That was a bad movie. So let's move on. Anyways, Michigan hosts Rutgers this week. We'll get to that. But obviously the topic in Ann Arbor and all over really national media has been how bad that Michigan game was last Saturday. We brought this podcast to you and previewed the season and thought this team is lacking holes outside of its pass defense. We were a little worried about the pass rush from the defensive line, but we thought it would hold up for the most part in its rush defense. And boy, were we wrong. Look, I'll step up when I'm wrong about something. I will step up. I was wrong about this defense. I said early on in the season, before the season started, I didn't think this was going to be that strong of a unit compared to ones of years past. But quote me on this, I thought it was going to be like a 20 to 25, maybe a 35 ranked unit. It's right around 40 to the 45 mark, depending on what ranking you're looking at.
It's 47 in total defense.
47, okay. So I'm close, I guess, after week 3, which maybe I was half right. It'll probably get better as the year goes on, you'd have to think. But against a Wisconsin team with pretty much one dimension, it was just obliterated from start to finish. It's not tough. They don't tackle well.
Yeah.
They are weak. They are small.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they're fast.
I think
at least in that game,
the most telling part from Saturday, with regard to what you just said, is the fact that they were exploited by exactly what they knew was coming. They knew they would see a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor. He still goes for over 200 yards despite an injury, the cramps. They knew Jack Cohen wouldn't be throwing all that well. They still got burned by him. Like, this is a very one-faceted offense. I would even go as far as to call it a one-trick pony with Jonathan Taylor. Cohen's got good numbers this year. Granted, before the Michigan game, he was carving up Central Michigan and South Florida. But, I mean, outside of that, you got to figure that they knew that Taylor was going to come. During the week, Josh Metellus emphasized gang tackling. I don't know if I saw multiple guys on him at once.
Do you remember that running back named Toby Gerhart from Stanford?
I do remember Toby Gerhart.
The dude for Wisconsin who was like the third stringer and came in when Jonathan Taylor was just like, hey, I got some cramps going. We're up 35. I don't think I really need to play. Not what he said, quote for quote, just really how the game was going. That dude came in on what, like 2nd and 22 or something along those lines after a holding call for Wisconsin at midfield and just said, I'm going to duck this for about 38 on 2nd and 25 or whatever it was. And the dude looked like a stubbier version of Toby Gerhart.
Yeah.
Who would have thought 5 years ago when Jim Harbaugh was hired that 5 years later we'd be watching a Wisconsin game where Wisconsin would be running Harbaugh and they would be pounding it down the throat of a Michigan team with a Toby Gerhart-looking guy. We thought that's what Michigan was going to look like. Obviously, the excitement before this season was all about the offense. We'll transition to that now and the new look and the modernization of the offense. And not saying this is the end of the end, just a funny little comparison there. The offense is obviously not doing so hot. And here's the thing. There's good and bad in what we saw on Saturday despite what the score might lend you as far as the offense. I think the defense was much worse than the offense, in the beginning at least. It was hard for the offense to go out there down 21-0 so quickly and be like, all right, here we go. Granted, you can't quit ever. But regardless, at 21-0 in the first quarter or second quarter, whatever it was, it's hard to go out there and have a fire lit under your butt. So,
especially when you're killing yourself. I mean, do you know what it does to your momentum when you hit a 68-yard pass and fumble on the next play? That's got to be demoralizing. After the game, Nick Eubanks said when they went down 14-0, which was shortly after Ben Mason's fumble, and Jonathan Taylor took it to the house from over 70 yards away. Nick Eubanks said he saw his teammates hanging their heads halfway through the first quarter. So I think all in all, maybe there's some emotional lessons that come out of this. And I think that goes back to character and back to the real strength of what this team is founded on.
Let's talk about Josh Gaddis. I know that you were there in person when he had his response to the media. Before we start with Gaddis, though, I want to talk about his unit for a second because at the very least, here's what we know. There is enough there for Michigan to make things work and be a potent offense, and there is a scheme that we saw in the fourth quarter that's going to work. Wisconsin really never let off the gas defensively. Those were still starters in there, and I'm assuming playing at the very least 80% to 100% along those lines. And Michigan was just chucking it up, and Nico Collins was catching literally everything. Donovan Peoples-Jones in the end zone, despite Hassan Haskins being more wide open than any receiver that entire day. Just Shea decides to roll out, chuck one out to Peoples-Jones, but at the end of the day, he came up with it. So here's what we know about Michigan's offense. It doesn't have an identity. What it's trying to do as far as setting up the pass with the run doesn't work, okay? They completely shy away from that in the Wisconsin game and go completely to pass to set up the run. Not even. They just pretty much said, hey, we're going to pass.
Pass to set up the pass, to set up the play action pass, to set up the deep pass.
Exactly. But so much of it was trying to go over the middle and dragging to Ronnie Bell instead of vertical to your absolute monsters and Nico Collins, Tariq Black, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. But here's the thing. They know what – I don't know if they know. I shouldn't say this. But we know what works. Going vertical to Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Tariq Black works mostly. They've done it this year multiple times, and it's worked. They did it against Middle Tennessee State. When they did it, it worked. They tried it against Army a couple times. When they did it, it worked. They tried it against Wisconsin a lot in the fourth quarter, down a bunch, and it worked. Nico Collins, 9 times out of 10, is going to A, catch the ball, B, draw a flag and not catch the ball, C, he dropped it once in his career, and that was an unfortunate occurrence that happened against, I believe it was Army? Middle Tennessee.
Slant over the middle, just got away from him.
So as bad as things are, at the very least, something works. Whether Michigan wants to click the A button for that play call is their prerogative.
Yeah,
but something works.
I think that's a good way of putting it with the A button, because this is a decision based on now 3 entire games worth of data, intel, quite frankly, the naked eye test. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't see it now, what's it going to take?
Yeah, I got nothing for it. I mean, we went into that Wisconsin game like, all right, this should be the moment where they really let things loose. And early on, it seemed that way, especially on that first play to Ronnie Bell. They came out for the second drive after the Mason fumble. Again, another pass on first down. The first 3 drives started off with a pass on first down in the first set of downs. Michigan was aggressive. Their defense never really gave them a chance to get back. Their offense never also gave them a chance to get back, but the defense was just being flattened. I mean, pancaked, pushed around, commanded, bulldozed. A lot of ways you can put it. They were getting blitzed. If you're in defense and you're getting blitzed, that's not a good thing.
When Dr. Blitz is your own defensive coordinator.
So tell us what you heard from Gaddis.
So he started off by addressing the turnovers, which is now 10 through 3 games, including all 3 opening possessions. Gaddis said it's uncharacteristic. It really is when you look at the time we devote to ball security, mentioning in practice that they've put an emphasis on it recently. Harbaugh touched on that on Monday. At some point, the disparity between not fumbling in practice and putting just about every ball on the turf in the game, it has to solve itself. With a veteran receiving core, a senior quarterback, a veteran offensive line, and quite frankly, the only weak spot is the running backs in terms of experience. And when you look at it, Shea's put the ball on the ground more than a few times. We've now seen Christian Turner fumble. No, we have not seen Christian Turner fumble. You saw Ben Van Sumeren fumble and Ben Mason fumble.
If you're Ben and you have the ball, you're likely not taking it past the line of scrimmage.
It's tough. Maybe it's time to try Ben Bredesen in the backfield.
Hey, they tried Sean McKeon against South Carolina, so the big boys are not shy to get in the carry.
Right, and quite frankly, if they're not fumbling the ball in practice and they continue to be stripped in the games, it's got to be a head case. I mean, this is something that has derailed 10 possessions now. And I'd say more than half of those 10 possessions looked like they were going to be scoring drives.
So let's talk about where this game went wrong. Let's not talk about it. Let's just point out the obvious. The Ben Mason fumble was pretty much like, all right, well, that's how this is going to go.
It's the beginning of a long list.
Right. I wrote a story up on the Wolverine Lounge following the game. I guess the kids are calling it a column. We'll say that's what it is because that's a good way to give it a specific name, whatever. And what I pointed out was if you're looking for the turning point in this game, look no further than the very first offensive drive when Michigan decided to hand it off to its fullback turned defensive lineman turned fullback defensive lineman hybrid out of like an inside zone. I don't even know why you would do that. I understand throwing a wrinkle in with Ben Mason on the goal line. You're at the 6-7 yard line. It's the first carry of the game. You're on a shotgun in the inside zone. Goodness gracious, if Zach Charbonnet's banged up, I get it. But Christian Turner, even though for heaven's sake cannot pass block a beach ball, at the very least, he can carry a ball a couple of yards without fumbling. And like you just mentioned, he hasn't fumbled this year. Ben Mason's been working on defensive tackle. That hasn't worked out very well. Regardless, you throw him in at tailback. Bless his heart, he gets 3 days to try it out, goes to a raucous crowd in Madison, and immediately fumbles. It's like, sheesh, how can you even be upset at the guy? He got 3 days to practice at the position after a whole year away from it and practicing defensive tackle. It's like, goodness gracious, it just boggles my mind sometimes. I get it. You're trying to throw a wrinkle in there, but at that stage of the game, it makes no sense. Does Michigan still inevitably lose that game even if they score on that drive? I mean, football is such a tilt and tat kind of game, you don't know, but if I had to say yes or no, they probably, still lose that game. Is it as bad as it seems? It cannot be because that's momentum, and momentum is so much in this game of football.
And then that momentum was compounded when a few plays later, Jonathan Taylor took it 72 yards to the house, untouched.
Bingo.
After breaking through the line of scrimmage, untouched. But, if you want to circle the first red flag, the first few red flags, there's your first 2.
3 positions that are wide open after that game. Let's go. Let's roll through it. Defensive tackle, first and foremost, is got to be the most wide open of all.
Yeah.
Michael Dwumfor continues to be banged up. We didn't see any of him in that game. Jordan Glasgow, for whatever reason, is getting time at that position in certain spots and is abysmal. Ben Mason is also not good at that position. Mazi Smith and Chris Hinton will see more time this week, I'm told. I don't know why they weren't already getting it. You traveled both of them to Wisconsin. Why not try them out in a game like that, especially when it got to the point when it was 35-0? Whatever, I'm just a guy. Regardless, you'll probably see more of them this week. And I think you'll understand why you should have saw more of him beforehand, because in my opinion, I would imagine they'll be better than Ben Mason and Glasgow. No knock on them. Mason, a guy who just switched to the position this year. Glasgow is literally built like a free safety, strong safety type guy at best. Former walk-on, let's remember. No knocking him. Love his football IQ, love his grit, but, I mean, that's tough. And I'm sure he, deep down, is probably like, yeah, no, I'm not a interior defensive tackle on the goal line situation against a Heisman running back who's probably going to be a first-day or second-day pick in the NFL draft and
one of
probably
the best
going to be pretty
lines.
good.
Yeah.
Behind an offensive line built like a freaking freight train.
Yep.
So defensive tackle is open. Another one. Hate to say it because I didn't think I would, but quarterback. You got to think quarterback is open. Dylan McCaffrey is not healthy, so he's not going to come in there and take over. But heaven forbid Joe Milton doesn't get a chance, especially in a game like this against Rutgers where you should roll, which we'll get to. Should roll. Should have rolled at Middle Tennessee State. Didn't. Should have rolled Army. Didn't. So we'll see. So we'll see what happens. Regardless.
Give us 10 minutes.
Regardless. Quarterback's got to be open. Shea Patterson, not getting it, man. You're not getting it. His reads, not good. They were not there. I mean, Nico Collins was in another country by himself in the fourth quarter of that Michigan-Wisconsin game, and Shea Patterson elected to throw it to a guy covered by a SWAT team. I mean, put him to bed. Ronnie Bell was blanketed. I mean, goodness gracious, they were singing lullabies. That dude was covered by the entire team, and Nico Collins was wide open and didn't get the ball. Shea Patterson, a kid that I've always liked, I think he gets bad rap. I've kind of always been an advocate for his game. I think he has the talent. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a mental thing. It probably is, but his reads are just not there right now, whether it's running the ball or throwing the ball or whatever it may be. It's not working.
And with the throwing reads, I think you see Shea, you watch his high school tape, you watch his Ole Miss tape. Shea's a scramble guy. Shea makes things happen. He's an improviser. Great arm, throws well on the run, can tuck it when you want him to. In this speed and space offense, I hate to say it, but do you think things are moving too fast? Whereas he's supposed to be taking these 3 to 5 step dropbacks and throwing off his back foot, hitting a one hitch route. Is the problem lying within the speed? Do you think that he's missing these initial reads, which is causing some TFLs or incomplete passes or even interceptions or tipped balls that could be picked?
I think a big problem is in that Pep Hamilton offense he was training for so long, you're only having 2 guys you're highlighting. If the first guy isn't open, you're checking down. That's it. And it seems like Shea's locking in on one guy, and if that guy's not open, he's either A, sacked, B, rushed, and has to blitz out and find something else and improvise, which sometimes works out better than when he actually has a clean pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And what he needs to start doing is realizing this scheme and what it's meant to be in its purest form is supposed to give him 4 to 5 targets at once. Utilize all 4 or 5 in the best way possible on each set of downs. Everyone is unique from the last one. Read the coverage, find the guy. I know that to me sounds like the easiest thing in the world, and if you're sitting at home, it's like, oh yeah, just do that. And like for Shea Patterson, or any quarterback in the NCAA, it's not that easy. But regardless, we all saw Hassan Haskins in the end zone. We all saw Nico Collins 40 yards down the field. Those are inexcusable. There are times where he tries to fit in windows, and he does a phenomenal job of it. There are times where he has nobody open, and he scrambles and makes the most out of nothing. He does good things. He is not a terrible quarterback. He's having a problem with his mid-play decision-making. His pre-snap IQ and the calling out of blitzes doesn't seem to be very much of an issue. It's his decision-making, his split decision-making in the moment. He is highlighting a guy and going with that guy, and if that guy's not open, he's going to another guy, and he's not thinking about the fact that in this offense he has 3 other targets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's a fact, but the film, that's what it's reflecting.
Right, and I think he saw that this week. I think Wisconsin, as bad as it was a steep learning curve. I think that there were multiple players throughout the week who said that you learn a whole lot more from losing than you do from winning. And can you ask for a better bounce-back team? I mean, this is the closest you'll get to a scrimmage against the air within the Big Ten. Do you think that they'll come out firing and airing it out? Or do you think that this is a matter of building that confidence up slowly?
I think this is a confidence-building game, and so I think they're going to come out with the truest form of the offense that they want to run moving forward. Each week, that's something different than the one before. At first, we saw a pass-heavy offense in the first half of the Middle Tennessee game, and then in the second half, we saw a run-heavy. For all of Army, we saw run-heavy. For all of Wisconsin, we saw pass-heavy.
But what stays consistent is that opening drive fumble.
which, whew, pray for this fan base if it happens again. I mean, send one up because they are going to come unglued. Deactivate your Twitter for an hour. It's going to be a bad reaction service. Let's move on to the next position that I really want to say linebackers, but because of Josh Ross not being there, and that's true, there's not much to dive into there. I think it's going to be Cameron Groen or Jordan Anthony and probably spelling each other. Devin Gill hasn't been great, probably more of a blitz package guy because he's a decent tackler, but struggles big time in pass coverage. But let's talk about the offensive line. I mean, we thought it was going to be a national unit. 4 guys coming back all Big Ten last year, and it's been bad. I mean, it has not been good. It was decent against Middle Tennessee. It was where things were struggling against Middle Tennessee were in the interior on the pass protection. We saw that same sort of thing happen against Army, but against the run, it was so good. At Wisconsin, I mean, goodness gracious. It's the first legitimate defensive line they see, and they just got pummeled.
I think part of it is the connection, the communication, and really just the adaptation that it takes to bring a guy like John Runyon back into the fold. Ryan Hayes did a good job week 1 against Middle Tennessee State. Not so much week 2. Missed some pretty bad pickups. I think that all in all, this is the unit that we have to be least concerned about. But when it comes down to it, and you see the stats, and you see the film, you see what they've given up, it's tough not to be concerned about them.
I don't think anything's going to change with it, especially given that Andrew Stuber's injured and Ryan Hayes is clearly, lengths behind Jalen Mayfield, who is the only one he could really replace. And they're not going to mess with the interior of Onwenu, Ruiz, and Bredesen. The performance was bad. I don't know if it's wide open, but it's got to be a unit that's getting punished this week for poor performance.
Mm-hmm. So who do you think would be next up if someone were to come in behind Hayes? We've heard great things about Nolan Rumler. They're going to use any of his first 4 games. It could be this weekend.
Probably the strongest guy. Steven Spinellis is a guy who's skilled and has been since he's been here. He's strong as can be, and his football IQ is through the roof. Chuck Filiaga is a guy who's always been right there in the mix. Joel Honigford is a guy that kicked out kicked out from guard to tackle after Stuber went down. So one of those guys. But again, the offensive line is the least likely to ever move in any situation just because it's one that has to be a cohesive unit, and mixing it up is never really easy, nor does it ever work out. So lastly, wrapping up at Wisconsin, the reactions. We usually do overreactions or legitimate reaction. Is everything about Harbaugh needing to be gone, yada, yada, yada. Here's what I said. I wrote up on the Wolverine Lounge about it. I think Harbaugh's at his ceiling here because in 2016, that's an insanely talented team, and they're inches from a Big Ten championship. In 2018, that's a really talented team, and they're inches from a Big Ten championship. This year, that's an insanely talented team. It's the 4th week. They got blown out by a Wisconsin team that's probably not going to win the national championship. Michigan was Ohio State away in 2016 and 2018. Right now, they got pummeled early by a team that's probably not better than Ohio State. So it's meaning it's not the best team in the conference. Michigan lost to the best team in the conference back-to-back years. I'm sorry, 2016, 2018.
Back-to-back years.
Right, but in the instance of them having the best, most realistic shot at a Big Ten championship and in turn B, a college football playoff, they haven't got there with their most talented teams. I don't think they've recruited as good as they did in years recent. Think about it. Are any of these players going to be better than Devin Bush? Are any of these players going to be better than Chase Winovich, Rashawn Gary, Mo Hurst? Who's there last year? Who else was there last year?
Yeah, David Long.
Leave
for the NFL. Tyreek Hill.
On this team
Ryan
right
Monet
now.
In recent years, Taco Charlton.
On this team right now, Lavert Hill's going to be gone. You're more than likely going to see those receivers gone, at least 1, maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. Shea Patterson, who hasn't really impressed, is going to be gone. I know that the quarterback thing, people should be excited about, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, how many of our listeners do you think just fist pumped?
Right. Ben Bredesen's going to be gone. He's the only offensive lineman that's been great, in my opinion. John Runyon's going to be gone. Who steps in at left tackle? It really makes you think, man. I mean, Dax Hill encouraging. Joe Milton, encouraging. Zach Charbonnet, very encouraging. The rest of the offensive line, Nolan Rumler, encouraging. Jalen Mayfield has to come into his own. Ryan Hayes has to come into his own. Andrew Stuber has to stay healthy. You get one more year of Caesar. The linebackers, Josh Ross is encouraging. Cam McGrone is encouraging. But nothing on the outside has been that encouraging to me. You have no defensive edges that are as encouraging as Chase Winovich was in his junior year, nor Rashawn Gary in his freshman or sophomore year, nor Mo Hurst in his junior year. I mean, it's just definitely not Levert or David Long. I mean, you get another year, Ambry Thomas. Vincent Gray's been good, but if you think Vincent Gray has looked as good as David Long and Levert Hill did early on, you were wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I would say the only guy who clearly looks a step above of those guys in their positions, Dax Hill and Zach Charbonnet. Outside of that, no guys are better than what they've had before, and we've seen. So in my opinion, what Harbaugh and Michigan has to do to outdo themselves is Harbaugh literally has to outdo himself. He has to take a team to places it hasn't been. Right? He has to take a team and take it to the next level and make them play harder. Talent. With weaker talent. And he hasn't been to a Big Ten championship. He hasn't visited a Big Ten championship. Nor has he been to a college football playoff with teams that, in my opinion, are better, especially in 2018 against a team at Ohio State it was not a great Ohio State team. Okay, so where I have not issue, but where this point gets brought up for me is that because the past has suggested that it is not going to happen, right? So unless he does something he hasn't done before, maybe that Wisconsin game lit a fire under his butt. I don't know. I mean, that's not my place to say. I don't know. Like if I sat here and told you guys that, I'd be lying. I'd be making it up. I'd be fabricated, yodeling, and I'm not going to do that to you. So It very well may happen, though. I'm not saying it's impossible, but in my right mind, I'm not going to write a story about how I think Harbaugh's going to eventually outdo himself just by pure will.
Right, and I think that's a very fair perspective on it.
But the question was, it was overreaction or reaction? That's what I should have asked you.
Okay. I'll do my little ramble before I get to that, but I don't think that Harbaugh is getting fired.
No,
ever.
God, no.
I think if he leaves, it will be on his own terms. He gets invitations to interviews from NFL teams seemingly every winter. I think this is a guy who's shown that he's comfortable with a change of scenery. 4 years at Stanford to 4 years at San Francisco to now 5 at Michigan. Kind of fits his timeline. I don't think that he will leave this offseason. I just don't. I think a lot of it rides on how they'll play the rest of the season. They'll have some huge tests at Penn State, home against Notre Dame, home against Michigan State, and then the game. Honestly, next week when they play Iowa should be a good game. Very telling. I think we'll learn a lot about this team and even more so the staff. Like, to what lengths are they willing to go to really save this ship? I'm not going to say save this ship. It's not sinking by any means. If they went out there in the college football playoff.
I don't know. If they went out is a tall task.
I know, but I'm saying that at this point, scheduling the way Michigan schedules and the way Big Ten teams are forced to really play each other in some Clash of the Titans-esque matchups, I think this schedule becomes a blessing because you still have all these chances to prove yourself. Whereas if you're Clemson or Alabama and you lose a game that you shouldn't lose, you get a game or two that's considered legitimate to prove yourself? Michigan's going to have the chance to prove itself week in and week out from here to the end. Even at Maryland is a tough game.
Yeah.
So I think that we're going to learn a lot about Harbaugh specifically and the rest of his staff, and quite frankly, the reactions that he needs to be fired, chop his head off, the amount of Urban Meyer photoshopped pictures into a Michigan. Oh, my Lord, that's got to stop.
We won't even get into it.
It's an overreaction.
It doesn't even deserve to be talked about.
Calling for Harbaugh's head is an overreaction.
There's no one to turn to. You won't even get into the whole firing thing.
Right, you ask about that. Who's going to come in and outdo Harbaugh? Who can take this program to a height that...
Urban Meyer can. Urban Meyer can, Daniel.
Yeah, I hear Joe from wherever Joe's from yelling that right into his earbuds right now. But I think that some realistic candidates. The first one that comes to my head is Mike Leach.
Oh, God. Wow. Him and his defense made of bullet holes. I mean, goodness gracious. Oh, man. Let's move on. It's not even worth it.
Overreaction.
If they lose to Rutgers, then we'll talk Mike Leach, all right? Mailbag questions. Real quick, we'll fire through them rapid fire. Josh asked, over under in this game, 1.5 turnovers. Total, way over. On Michigan, under? I don't know. Sure.
I'll go under.
Tough one to read.
I'll go under. Well, if there's a team that they're going to break through against with ball security, it has to be Rutgers.
And by breakthrough, we mean 1 turnover.
Yeah. By breakthrough, you'll have the given opening possession fumble, and then a clear slate from there on out. No, but in all seriousness, it wouldn't shock me if they don't turn the ball over in this game.
He also asked me if I'm going to riot against Big B. First off, I want to point out Big B Coffee is a pretty good place, underrated. However, I was really interested in the mint chocolate chip freeze. For anybody out there listening that wants to send me a gift, I freaking love mint chocolate chip anything. I know that a lot of people don't agree with that opinion, but it's too bad. So I had remembered, for whatever reason, because I have a wandering mind, that Big B had this mint chocolate chip freeze special thing all summer, and I was like, hey, I really want to try that. And I never really drove by a Big B and was like, perfect, here we go. So yesterday, I promptly drove by a Big B and thought to myself, I really want that mint chip freeze. So I go in there and I ask the guy, and the barista, as he prefers to be called, I guess, was like, yeah, we still have it, but it's low key. And I'm like, okay, can I get it? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So he makes it, whatever. It'll be $7.09.
$7.09.
I'm really bad at saying, hey, no, I'm not going to pay that. And I'm also really bad at being confrontational with workers, because I'm of the belief that at the end of the day, it's not up to like employees what happens at a barista, at like a corporate chain. Yeah, I'm not going to go to McDonald's and scream about the price of 10-piece chicken nuggets like that. Man, what are they going to do? Like they work there. There's nothing they can do. It's not
Ronald McDonald menu now.
Yeah, well,
the 10-piece.
Really?
Or is it the 3-piece? The 10-piece might still be $2.99.
I know Burger King has the $1 ones. Anyways, it's not their fault, so we're not going to ride against Big B, because you know what? I should have stepped up and said, hey, I'm not going to pay that. Can I get something else? Instead, I ate it, or drank it, I should say, and it was actually pretty good. Was it worth $7? Absolutely not. All right, next question comes from Nate. He asks, are we going to see Hinton and Massey Smith? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we'll still dive into it. I do believe you're going to see more of Chris Hinton and Massey Smith in this game. They really haven't seen any time so far this year, so the redshirt rule is still in effect. Michigan's at a spot right now, though, where it's like, hey, forget about a red shirt. We need this to stop the run against literally anybody, because they are not doing it in the interior right now unless they're playing Army. So
yeah, I'm going to take that a step further and say not only will we see Massey and Chris Hinton, we will see them and be impressed by them and begin to see at least one of them regularly. It's a bold prediction of mine.
And then the last question was off topic, similar to the Big B question. Asked me for Rap Album of the Year. For anybody who knows me and follows me on Twitter, you should know I'm very much so a hip-hop head guy. I know I'm very white in my ways. However, I do pay attention to music and believe that my thoughts on hip-hop are credible in a way. I thought that Revenge of the Dreamers was good. I'm not a huge J. Cole guy. I like him. I don't think he's the greatest thing to ever be invented, but I thought that his label Dreamville put together something really special this year, Revenge of the Dreamers, with Earth Gang and Boss and JID, who I think is the best young artist in hip-hop right now, so that's that. And then outside of that, I thought it was So Much Fun by Young Thug. I thought that was a terrific album. I know that you pulled up.
I would like to play devil's advocate here and bring up the worst hip-hop album of the year.
I thought you were going to say, dude, this is going to get you in a lot of trouble with me right now.
No.
You're going to say it, and it's going to make me really mad.
I really did not like The Big Day by Chance the Rapper. Did you?
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't my favorite album of the year, but, like, I have two favorites in hip-hop. I'm surprised you don't know this. I'm pretty sure, like, half the people listening to this that know anything about me should know this. Like, Kanye West,
New 1A. Album soon.
Maybe. God, maybe. We never even know.
Not Friday anymore.
He's coming to Detroit on Friday for Sunday service. He's doing his Sunday service in Detroit. Free tickets, 12 o'clock at some amphitheater. I don't remember, at the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater. Look, The Big Day was not better than Acid Rap. It was not better than Coloring Book. It was not better than 10 Day. It was not better than the Christmas album. It was not better than anything he's put out. It was probably his worst project. That being said, it was still, like, I still enjoyed it, and I don't think it was the worst, collection of the year or anything of that nature. That's because I like Chance the Rapper, and I don't like disrespecting him. However, a lot of people hated it because it was very positive and very cheesy and very much so, I love my wife. I don't know if you saw that video. But yeah, there's a lot of old heads listening to this that probably do not care. So
right.
We'll move on. However, don't insult Chance. Moving on.
Noted. Otherwise, this will become a one-man show.
Oh, God. Soon, the Wolverine Lounge, population, me. Eyes on the enemy. This is all you. Let's get away from music.
All right. So, Rutgers is Rutgers. They're having a Rutgers season. You look at it, they have used 2 quarterbacks pretty consistently throughout the season. They used McLean Carter week 1, pretty much split time between him and Artur Sitkowski in week 2, and then Sitkowski took the reins in week 3. Sitkowski did well. He completed 23 of 33 attempts for 304 yards and a touchdown, threw a 74-yard bomb, only threw 1 interception. They lost that game by 14 points, despite their quarterback stat line, against a mediocre Boston College team.
Okay. They lost Kansas.
Less than mediocre Boston College team. A team that was perceived to be mediocre.
Right, okay.
Entering this season. Pretty middle of the pack when it comes to teams of that caliber. In the rushing game, they've got one guy, Isaiah Pacheco. He's got 46 rushing attempts. The next most comes from Raheem Blackshear with 23. Pacheco's at 245 yards on the season. Yeah, out of those 46 attempts, only 6 have gone for a loss. Averaging 5.2 yards per carry, found the end zone 4 times through 3 games. 57-yard scamper is his longest of the year. When you average that out, it's about 80 per game. He's having a solid season. That's a solid season. Receiving, Raheem Blackshear, to go along with his 23 rushes, has 22 receptions for 255 yards. That's an average of almost 12 per grab. 2 touchdowns. He was on the receiving end of that 74-yard bomb last weekend. 85 yards a game is solid. Michigan doesn't have anyone averaging 85 yards a game. But what always hurts Rutgers, especially against Big Ten teams, is the defense. The unit really doesn't bring much. Athletically speaking, these are guys that have no business being across from the line of scrimmage with DPJ on the other side, Nico Collins on the other side, Tariq Black on the other side. No McEwen this week, but Nick Eubanks is an athletic freak. He's a guy who could play a massive role in the passing game. Anyone coming out of the backfield, quite frankly. Ronnie Bell in the slot, whether we see Mikey Sainer still, remains to be seen. I think there's a good chance.
Yeah, you're going to see more of him, yeah.
Yep.
This week. Little nugget.
You think they have anyone half as fast as him?
No.
No. So, I think Michigan will get its offense back on track this game, whether it stays on track against Iowa.
Not predictions yet, don't worry.
Okay. We'll hold off on that, but it's a unit that Michigan can expose, to say the least.
To say the least. Jesus, if they don't put up like 41 plus on Rutgers, okay. I mean,
you're talking about the first half or 30, for the whole game?
I don't know, man. This one's weird. This team is weird right now. It's week 4.
Week 5. Game 4.
Yeah, game 4. Hard to predict. All right. Hail to spread.
Let's do it.
Best part of the day, even if you're here for things outside of spreads. We're going to do it a little bit different this time. Why? Because this show is always under construction and in improvements. So instead of taking each game that we talk about and A, breaking it down, and B, picking the total and spread and just kind of yelling them, we're going to pick a spread and a total for each game that we talk about. And we are going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of them. All right. 6, not including Michigan, which we'll talk about at the end. All right. First things first, Duke, Virginia Tech. It's at Virginia Tech. The Hokies lost to Boston College this year. They're good. They're all right. The game's at 7 o'clock. You know that place is going to be nuts. Virginia Tech is always a raucous crowd.
Yep.
They're getting a field goal, though. 2.5 might lean Virginia Tech. Field goal, though. Duke underdogs. I like Duke. I just like Duke. I think they're going to get out-coached in this game. I think Cutcliffe's a good coach. Makes more out of the less talent. Virginia Tech's just not that good this year. They don't really jump off the page to me as a 3-point favorite against a pretty solid Duke team that held Alabama at bay for about a quarter or two, which is a lot more difficult than what it seems. So give me Duke +3.
Yeah, I'm going to side with you, too, and take it a step further. I think Duke wins this game outright. I
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see them marching in, getting a win. They're off to a good start this season, mm-hmm. Duke. I think it was very encouraging seeing what that defensive unit did against Alabama, even though it crumbled after that quarter and a half. The fact that it was so stable for a quarter and a half is big plus for them. I think it's a program on the rise. So
we're doing 3 spreads, 3 totals. Let's look at a spread now. Arizona State, Cal. It's at 42. Upon a first glance, a Cal and Arizona State team, or game, I should say, at 42 sounds like a for sure over, especially because it's at 10:30 and Pac-12 after dark is always naughty on offense. But Cal's got a really stout defense. They're ranked 15th in the country. This is the best Cal team in years. You might remember Kakoa Crawford, who was a receiver for this team. However, their offense, surprisingly, is abysmal. Arizona State's offense them in general lost to Colorado off that Michigan State win. What stands out to me is the last time Arizona State went on the road and faced a stout defense, the final score was 10-7. So give me the under at 42. What about you?
10-7. I remember something about the number 12 from that game. Are
we allowed to troll them still?
No. Honestly, I really think that this game's going to go over, just as a gut feeling. You got to figure that.
It's Pac-12 after dark, you're probably right.
Benjamin and co. will probably put up, I don't know, I my gut feeling says somewhere in the 20s. And then I think with
you need a 24-21 final.
Right, which I think we're going to get. And that's the gut feeling. Pac-12 after dark. I'll be watching. Will you?
Not from home. Saturday after Rutgers, I'm getting wild. All right, Central Michigan, Western Michigan. This is a total 59.5. Western Michigan's offense is top 10 in the country. Central Michigan gave up a lot of points to Wisconsin. They gave up a lot of points in general. They did beat up on Akron. That being said, Western Michigan's defense is abysmal, and Central Michigan's offense has half a brain. So at 59.5, I think you're looking at like a 45-42 type game, so long as the weather holds up. And upon first glance, it looks like it should be okay weather. In Kazoo, it's a noon game. Noon games always get freaky. Give me the over at 59.5.
I'm going to go over 2, but not by nearly as much as you're predicting. I'm
a wild man.
I think it ends somewhere around,
I think it's free.
31-28.
Okay. Still over, so it's
fine. It is over, but I don't know if we're seeing either team put up 40+. Yes, Western is a fantastic offense, but
at home too.
Right,
I'm just saying.
Right.
All right, we've got Notre Dame and UVA, the Cavaliers. Notre Dame is hosting Virginia.
Teams.
Notre Dame covered that spread against Georgia, only losing by 7. It actually closed at 15.5, so they ended up covering, and they looked good. Still a big Ian Book guy, despite him not lighting the world on fire in that game. What's not talked about enough, though, is the Irish's defense. I think it really held up in a tough environment at Sanford Stadium. 12.5-point favorites here against a good Virginia team. Virginia, similar to Cal, is usually very bad at football, but happens to be pretty decent this year. They got a strong offense at times, but it's really their defense that's stepped up. However, Notre Dame at home, coming off that Georgia game, I think they come out firing and they don't let up. This Virginia team, I don't think they're as good as what people are making them out to be. Not that many people are, but as far as the ranking goes, I like the Irish by at least 17 in this game, if not 21-24. And at 12.5, I am grabbing it. Yeah. Not personally, just in this game, available to spread.
I definitely think that South Bend's a very tough place to play. But you got to figure that Virginia's been prepping for this game for a while.
This is probably their Super Bowl.
This is right. This is the game that they circled on their calendar. I think it's something the way Michigan was game planning for Army since the spring. I think UVA's been trying to figure out Notre Dame's defense since the spring. I think they'll get creative. I think they'll take chances. And I think the game's going to be a lot closer than some may think. I do think that they'll lose by around, call it 7 to 10 points. Touchdown to a touchdown and a field goal.
So you are taking the points.
I am.
All right, let's head to Seattle. It's a 3:30 game at Washington. USC comes in with a banged-up quarterback. Jacob Eason hasn't lit the world on fire at Washington. The total is at 61. I really like the under here because of the banged-up quarterback at USC.
Yeah, he looked great against Utah.
Along with the fact that Washington's defense is pretty solid. With him going through concussion protocol at time of recording on Thursday, I just see USC being without him, and I don't see – USC is the definition of finding a way to find a quarterback that randomly comes in and is better than the guy who was supposed to be great. However, the luck's got to run out at some point. It's at Washington, raucous crowd, great defense. Eason's not good enough to put up 40 in his own against USC. I'll take the under at 61.
I think I'll probably finish somewhere around 61. I don't think it's going to be a particularly close game. I think Washington wins this one convincingly.
Yeah, I think it's a 31-17 Washington win.
I could get behind that. But I do think that if Easton's going to find a game to break out, this is a game that they definitely have focused on for a while. Pair of ranked teams clashing. Big statement game. I think they break through, especially at home.
Oregon State, Stanford. Stanford sucks.
Yeah, we've learned that.
Stanford's defense is trash. I mean, I should be more politically correct when I'm describing this team, but they suck.
Swiss cheese.
They don't have NFL players anywhere. They suck. Oregon State, 4.5 at home. A home dog is always a good dog. He's a good boy. Pet him. Bet him. Take the Beavers plus 4.5.
Do it now.
Indiana, Michigan State. I think this is one too many, but forget about it. Indiana, Michigan State, the Spartans, obviously we know all about them. Their defense is fantastic. Their offense depends on the week. Against Indiana, I don't like it. I don't know. They're like an every other week team, it seems. Week 1, they were bad on offense. Week 2, they were good. Week 3, they were awful. Week 4, they were good. So we'll go with them being bad again. The over-under is at 44.5. Last week, they were at 36 at time of kickoff. So give me the under in this game. It's at Spartan Stadium, and Indiana's offense is also not very potent either. So give me the under.
I think it goes under too. I think
a lot of unders.
Yeah, definitely. I think Indiana's defense isn't maybe as bad as some may think, but Michigan State's offense most definitely is. Whether Indiana picks up a first down against this Michigan State defense remains to be seen. It wouldn't shock me to see Indiana finish somewhere in the single digits, with Michigan State somewhere in the, call it high teens, maybe 17, 17-3, 17-7 final.
All right, let's wrap up the show here and get everybody ready for Michigan and Rutgers. I know that is going to be a tough job. However, Michigan-Rutgers in the Big House, 12 o'clock. No better time for them football than noon in Ann Arbor or anywhere in America at noon, because noon is a wonderful time for football. So long as Team noon games for life. All right. First things first, look out for blank. Take one thing. What are you looking out for in this game?
Look out for Dax Hill. If he comes, if he makes an impact, if he makes a big impact, he's here to stay. I think this could be the breakout game. This could be the one where people look back and they see a complete matchup nightmare for Rutgers against a guy like Dax Hill with his athletic ability and football instinct. He's now had the summer bridge program, the first month of the season, all of training camp to acclimate to the college game. I think this is the one where the whole campus learns his name, if they haven't already. Shame on you if you haven't.
Look out for Nico Collins, because holy shoo, how do you not get him the ball? I think he's going to demand the ball because he's that good. He's going to play man ball against these Rutgers defenders. Look out for Nico Collins. Obvious choice, so I'll throw in another one that's, I guess, less obvious. I think that you're going to see more Eric All, just because with Sean McCune out, he's a guy who can be vertical as well.
Mm-hmm. Sharon Moore said he has the best hands on the team.
That's pretty high praise from the tight ends coach.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Predictions. The spread's at 27.5 at time of recording. What are you taking?
I'm going to go Michigan covers. I think Michigan puts up, call it somewhere in the 40s. Wouldn't shock me if they eclipse the half-century mark, but I think Michigan scores somewhere around 45 to 48 points. I think they hold Rutgers to, you got to figure, less than 2 touchdowns.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. They got a good running back. That typically doesn't go well for Michigan in this team.
I'll call it 42-10, Michigan.
The over-under is at 49, so at 42-10, you are taking the over.
I am. This game's going over.
I'm going to take this game at 41-17, also over, and I'm going to take Michigan to cover as well.
You think Rutgers scores 17?
I sure do, because I'm a nutcase, and if you don't know that by now, then welcome to the show. So Michigan-Rutgers kickoff is at noon at the Big House. We both got Michigan winning. I'm saying look out for Nico Collins, maybe some Eric All. Dash is telling you look out for Dax Hill. For Hail to the Podcast, I'm Brandon Justice.
Remember, If you hail to the podcast, if you hail to the victors, do you want to cut that and redo it?
No, I want to just keep it because we're a pure podcast, baby. Remember, if you hail to the oh my God, I did it too. If you hail to the victors,
you'll hail to the podcast.